It's a big day today here at CityBilly Adventures. We're taking some big steps towards restoring this backyard lake. Stay tuned. Today, in part 1, we're going to drain the lake so we can attack this thick layer of sludge at the bottom. Sludge is a problem for several reasons. First, the thicker the sludge layer becomes at the bottom of the lake, the less room you have for water above it, and the lake slowly gets shallower over time. Second, it's extremely fertile, and it allows for invasive underwater plants to grow out of control. You can see how quickly grass is growing after just a few days of exposure. Our lake has a real problem with hydrilla. Cleaning out the muck should help with keeping the hydrilla under control. And finally, you can see how thick this stuff is. It's easy to get your feet stuck. There's been a few stories recently in our area of people jumping in ponds or lakes, getting their feet stuck in a mucky bottom and drowning. And to a lesser degree, just wading in and out of the lake stirs this stuff up, and it doesn't make for a very good swimming experience. So with all that said, I'm extremely excited to get this project going. Mrs. CityBilly is really excited about it too, right honey? She knew what she signed up for. Here's a little background on how we got to this point. So if you've been following along for a while, you know that we stumbled into this neglected estate property, and we're in the process of making it our dream home. Part of the property had this 1.5 acre lake, or pond. We're not sure what the difference is. I like to call it a lake, but who knows. The lake was in really sad shape when we moved in. Almost the entire surface was covered in a thick algae mat, and the shore was an overgrown jungle. There were plenty of bluegill and enough frogs to make you think you were Moses in Egypt, but we saw no signs of any bass in the lake. Over the past 3 years, we've been doing our best to restore the lake and make it really good for bass fishing. We got the algae under control with a combination of algicides and grass carp. We added an aerator to help increase oxygen in the water to support the fish and reduce algae. We stocked forage fish, including a sizable amount of minnows. A couple times we caught our own creek chubs for the lake as well. We also made a homemade live well and transported some good-sized bass back to the lake. So after all our efforts, underwater weeds called hydrilla remained our nemesis. I tooled around the lake a few times in my rowboat and raked out a decent amount, but it was like trying to drain the ocean with a thimble. So in year 3, we decided it was time to drain the lake and scoop out the sediment that was causing the hydrilla to grow so crazy. I went to my local plumbing supply store and bought 6-inch PVC pipe to make a siphon to drain the lake. I put my boys to work carrying the pipe to the back of the lake because what are boys for? My plan was to assemble a siphon to drain the lake into the creek that runs behind the dam. We dry fit the pipes together and floated the intake end into place. I didn't use any adhesives because I planned on reusing some of the pipe to make a dust collection system in what will eventually be my workshop. Stay tuned for that video. Here's the whole system. There's a cap on the discharge end in the creek. We used 5-gallon buckets to fill the siphon. It took about 15 buckets to fill up the outflow end. Once the system is full of water, we cap the top and uncap the outflow. Gravity pulling water out of the system should create enough suction to start drawing water out of the lake and create an energy-free siphon system. That's the idea, anyway.
Drum roll, please. Drum roll.
Joy to the world. Yes! Science!
We figured that dry fitting the pipes was probably not an airtight seal. Air in the system stops the suction. So we bought some Flex Seal tape and taped over all the connections. I hoped this would keep air out of the system and still allow me to reuse the pipes for my workshop. "15 more buckets, and we tried the siphon again. The siphon worked flawlessly. It pumped out a ton of water for about 24 hours. And then it stopped. The water level was down about 2 feet, which exposed the next pipe connection that had previously been underwater and didn't get sealed. Air got in the system and killed the suction. No biggie. We sealed the exposed fitting and filled it back up. All I could figure was that the Flex Seal tape wasn't keeping air completely out. It seemed like the elbow connections were especially suspect. So I broke down and permanently attached the elbows using PVC cement. Then I used liquid Flex Seal and went over all the connections. No more screwing around. I was tired of lugging buckets of water out of the lake over and over.
What what's going on here? What the hell? What is wrong with... Damn it! Damn it! Oh, God damn!
At this point, I had no idea what the issue was. but I knew I had to get the lake drained soon so the muck could solidify enough to be dug out this summer. So I swallowed my pride and bought a trash pump. This thing pumps through a 3-inch hose, which was the biggest I could find. That amounts to half the amount of water that my siphon was moving. But currently my siphon wasn't pumping any water, so I felt like I had no choice. Once I got over the $800 kick in the pants, the trash pump did a pretty good job, and we drained a lot of water. One downside was the gas tank had to be refilled every 90 minutes or so. My wife and I tag teamed this chore while the other one was at work. In the meantime, we continued to try to diagnose why our siphon wasn't cooperating. I had too much time and money invested in these stupid pipes, and I really wanted it to work. Knowing that it worked initially made it that much more frustrating. I was convinced that there was an air leak in one of the pipe connections. I added these rubber connectors to each pipe fitting as one more barrier to seal the connections. The lower the lake level became, the more of a hassle it was to lug these buckets of water to fill the siphon. We finally got wise and used the trash pump to fill it up instead. We tried adding a reducer to the outflow end to prevent air from burping back into the system from the back. Another dead end. Then I consulted with my buddy Derek, who is a bit more on the Billy end of the CityBilly spectrum. But let's be honest, he might be on the actual spectrum. Tell me he's not the living incarnation of Bobby Hill. I'm sorry, Derek, I couldn't resist. I'm just jealous because you're a better fisherman than me. Anyway, Derek pointed out that since we lowered the water level a few feet, the air pocket in the siphon was likely longer than the amount of water I had loaded in the outflow end. The water was likely already drained out of the outflow before the lake water reached the top of the siphon. Derek suggested we make the outflow end longer to increase the amount of water that will start the suction. It made sense. I may have forgot to secure the new pipe with one of those rubber fittings. I'd been doing some research on one-way valves, also called check valves, but I couldn't find any for 6-inch pipe. I finally found one that was made for septic tanks. The flap inside only allows water to move in one direction. I attached this to the intake end of my siphon system. This way I could fill the entire system with water and there would be no air pocket to worry about. Check valve? Check.
There you go.
Siphon completely full of water with no air pocket? Check. All pipe fittings properly sealed? Check. Outflow pipe lower than the intake end? Check.
Ella, I fixed it! Come on! Everybody come on quick! Look at the light!
We finally got the siphon flowing like it was supposed to. Not nearly as easy as I thought it would be, but I never said I was a professional. I'm just a CityBilly figuring it out as I go. We got there eventually. The siphon flowed until the lake level was lower than the creek. Gravity was no longer our friend. I wanted to get the lake level down another couple feet to expose as much muck as possible, while still leaving enough water for the fish to survive. We tagged in the trash pump to drain off those last couple feet. The bank was pretty steep, so I used a dock float to keep the pump level. These floats will be used for the massive dock we're going to build in a future video. So it took significantly longer than I expected, and it wasn't exactly how I drew it up, but we finally drained the lake. I kept about 3.5 feet of water in the deepest part to keep the fish alive. One thing that we noticed was the lack of any structure or fish habitat. We have big plans to fix that before this project is over with.
I just want to say one thing to my wife who's home. Yo, Adrian! I did it!
So that's it for part 1. We're going to let the muck dry for a few weeks before we have an excavator come in and dig it all out. We'll see you back here at the end of summer. Thanks for watching.